Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Getting There, eSchool news conversation with district leaders in their response to the coronavirus pandemic. With me today, Dr. Adam Phyall. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Adam is the Director of Technology and Media for Newton County Public Schools, correct?
That's correct.
Very
Fun position to have, especially with everything going on. I get a chance to have some technology, instructional technology, and also library and media services all rolled into one.
Great. And you guys are located outside Atlanta, right?
Yes, we are east of Atlanta, also known as the Hollywood of the South. A lot of TV shows and movies are filmed here. So if you've seen something on Netflix or Hallmark, more than likely it was probably filmed in the small town of Covington, Georgia.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm sure you're having a very calm, relaxing summer, right? Now that school's out and really not too much going on.
Oh yeah, just kicking my feet up, eating bonbons and sipping mint juleps. That's what we do.
Well, unfortunately, when we're all kind of tired of talking about it, but it is the thing that we need to discuss, which is how schools are responding to this madness. I don't know, we're several months in now, and kind of maybe getting over the initial shock of it and starting to look towards the fall. Maybe you can give us a little background on what the situation is like for you folks down there.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, just like everyone, when it initially hit, somewhere in my bones, my spider senses were tingling that this was not going to just be a 2-weeker that we were kind of projecting. Because we were, I think, hoping for the best because it was going to go right into our spring break. So we were hoping that we were just going to be 2 or 3 weeks out and then back in there. And then once it became a situation where it was going to extend for the entire school year, then we definitely had to figure out the best way, because we weren't one-to-one with our devices in the district. So we had to break our shelter in place and distribute devices to our students. This is an entire county that I'm over. So we have some kind of urban, suburban to rural areas of the district. So with that, you have those challenges of students not having connectivity due to finances, and also not having connectivity because it's not in their part of the district. And so those are all things that we had to deal with, rolling out Chromebooks, which 80% of the work requires this device to be connected to the internet for them to really get anything out of it. That's really in any computer now, because the internet goes down, you're like, oh, the computer's not working. So really trying to sort that out. So that was one hurdle that we had to try to work around, so that we utilized some devices we had through T-Mobile that were some cellular Chromebooks. So we were able to put in a SIM card in those and kind of light those up for some students. Also, we ran into, like everyone else, the shortage of hotspots. So we were able to get in an order through Kajit and light some of those up. But then also we utilized some cell phones through another vendor that we were able to, it was basically an Android phone that they just dumbed down to tether devices to. So really looking at, the connectivity piece was just the biggest issue and the biggest hurdle that we were looking at, on top of also then getting enough devices out to our end users in the public. So it just really, that was just that crazy piece. And now when we start planning, and I have to take my hats out to educators, they have to be one of the most adaptive groups, because we're talking about writing this as we speak, while you still have folks at the government level having figured out how they're going to open back up. But we're looking at teaching kids, because we do know opening up the economy is very important, but you have to have schools in order to open up the economy, because let's be honest, it's free daycare for people. What do you do with your kids for your 8-hour, 9-hour workday if you can't send them to school? So we have to make sure this system is working, so all of the people can get back and open up our economy and continue to work.
Yeah. No, I know the idea of digital equity and closing those digital gaps was something that you were really hot on pre-pandemic, right? I mean, that's part of your career. That's something you've been working towards. What in this experience, like this great beta test now that we've gone through, any thoughts, any insights of things like, wow, we could have been doing this all along, or?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we did, and some of the companies to kind of step up. And for me, I'm kind of like, what do you do after the hashtag is over?
Yeah.
So, whether you're talking about hashtag for Black Lives Matter or hashtag for COVID, you had cellular companies, for example, open or internet service providers opened up the community Wi-Fi's,
Yeah.
whether it was Spectrum or Comcast or Charter or whomever. Uh, why don't you do that all the time? It's something that's simple because let's be honest, it's pretty low speed. It's enough to check your email and do a few things.
Yeah.
If that's something that could just be opened up, go for it. And also, when, as I mentioned earlier, we have parts of our district where it has not been in the benefit of a service provider to run fiber to that part of the community, so they haven't. So you're literally cutting off people from the world when they cannot get connected. So it's a conversation that needs to happen. It's bigger than just K-12. This should be something that the various boards of commissioners are talking about. This needs to be something that's discussed in November for this election cycle. I would be pretty annoyed if the two candidates on the debate stage are not saying something about increasing or improving our infrastructure to provide at least 1 gig of internet to the home. Now, what you light up is on your business, but be able to have a gig of fiber to every household in America is something we need to be talking about when digital age is here. Everything we're talking about, connectivity, being able to have internet access, this is the way of life. This is how you're going to get jobs. This is how you're going to work jobs. Because just think about the people who couldn't work from home because they did not have the internet access. So we're not just talking about our students. We had some of our teachers that were not able to host Zoom meetings because they didn't have the bandwidth, the connectivity in their home to do so. So, we get a lot of times we talk about our students, but even our employees didn't have the ability to do that. We had some teachers pulling up in the parking lots of our schools. So those are some things that we really need to have larger conversations other than just in the K-12 space. So I think this has made it more of a national issue versus just a bunch of school districts whining about it. It's something that we realize everyone needs access to. I mean, heck, I had a doctor's appointment during the pandemic and I had to use my cell phone to do a kind of a Zoom meeting with my medical provider. I had the ability to do that, but just imagine if I did not have the ability to do that. Now I'm not getting medical care because I don't have internet access, and that's a problem.
Absolutely. The report cards are coming in on the various successes and failures of districts around the country on making this transition. A lot of districts I've seen feel that they made that connection, and just having that social emotional connection with students was all they really could do to accomplish to get through the spring and forget about assessments and forget about finishing up curricula. Where do you fall in that one? How do you feel that you did as a district, and when you look at other districts, what do you kind of grade the transitions?
I can give one or two answers. I can give the political correct answer. I can give the real answer. So this be heard by other people. I'll go somewhere in between. I'll tiptoe it. It's one of those things where when you start talking about the SEL, we are grading ourselves. We're saying we did a good job, which is often a slippery slope from a district to say, oh yeah, we did a good job connecting with our kids and our families that needed our support. Because they're not going to tell you how poorly they did. I think our staff it started clicking when we had some real conversations where they're like, oh, we're Zooming with our kids or we're having Google Meets or WebEx. And it's like, okay, are you talking about all your kids? Which kids are you talking about? Because sometimes you need to pick up the phone and call. Because we know for a lot of our students, it's not just my district, this is all districts, school is their safe place. They're happy to come to school. They look forward to coming to school because they may be in a home situation that's not the best to have them grow into the individuals that they should grow into. And now they were basically trapped in that environment for 3 to 4 months. So we wanted to make sure that our teachers were picking up the phone and trying to make at least phone contact with those students and have those conversations. Because we know, going back to the equity of access, those students didn't have the ability to connect digitally with their peers. And even we had the conversation with some of our teachers to just host chat sessions with their kids, where it's not school related, because we all know one of the best parts of school is socializing.
Right.
I think as adults, I could probably tell you more fun things that happen outside the classroom than actually this really great lecture my teacher gave me in my Algebra 1 class in 9th grade.
Right.
I can tell you about some funny stuff that happened with some of my buddies in the hallway. So we wanted to also tell teachers, hey, you can provide a quote unquote safe space under the umbrella that we have. You need to be in the chat. Let's let the kids talk. Have them chitty chat about, man, did you see that episode of whatever last night? It was fun. Just being kids and talking, because we sometimes need to facilitate that conversation and redirect it if it's some conversations that shouldn't be happening. But, just provide that space for kids. Also, as long as the parents are okay with that, that was one of the things that we encourage our teachers to also do as well, just to have that those support structures. And we also looked at making sure the resources that we currently have were just available to our parents and students, whether it's through our school messenger. Hey, if you're feeling down or depressed, here's a phone number you can call. Here's some website information that you can go in. So just making sure that information was to the forefront. And we also had the lunch and breakfast programs. So also making sure that information was available at those food pickup locations for people as well.
Yeah. Now, looking forward to the fall, there seem to be a number of different possible scenarios, from best case going back to the new normal to the worst cases, staying remote. How are you planning that out?
Day by day, minute by minute. Now we kind of have, our plans in place. Our state has kind of given us guidance. And I think most district leaders have kind of looked at every other state's plan and pilfered and borrowed some different scenarios. Whether you talk about an A day, B day, portion face-to-face, portion virtual. I know this year we will have some type of full virtual academy where students will log in for a full semester and receive virtual teaching, because there's some students and families that they just don't feel comfortable having a kid go to a school right now, whether they have medical pre-existing conditions or they're just not comfortable. And we want to make sure we can provide that educational support for those students. And let's be honest, schools don't want to lose those FTE dollars. So once you lose those dollars for those kids enrolled in a different program because you can't provide that service, it's very hard to make ends meet if you're starting to have an exodus of your students. So we have to make sure we can provide various formats of education for those students. So we are looking at these blended learning or a regular face-to-face traditional school. What does that look like? So, we were having conversations about creating a back-to-school video or video segments where it's like, here's what it will look like at your school bus. These are not paid actors, because more likely they're going to be us educational members. We're going to get our kids.
Right.
And
well, you're the Hollywood of the South, right?
Yeah, exactly. What does it look like in the cafeteria? So one is really getting the word out to calm people's fears on what it's going to look like and feel like, so they know what we are expecting. And I think that's one thing that my district and other districts are really doing is you have to be transparent and you have to communicate, because if you don't communicate, people are going to look at whatever meme on the internet or something that somebody posted, and they're like, oh, well, this is what this school's going to do. So we have to make sure as an education system, we get ahead of the story and we tell our story before somebody else tells it for us, as far as what back to school is going to look like. And the fact that, yes, this is our plan, but let's be honest, if the governor comes out and says something different tomorrow, or the president comes out and says something different about outbreak or the virus, then all those plans go out the window. So also letting them know that these are plans are subject to change based on what the CDC guidelines come out.
Talk a little bit about how the district's relationship with parents has changed because of all of this. I mean, they've really become an extension of the faculty, right?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think a lot of our parents have definitely gotten a new appreciation for what teachers do, especially some that have observed the Zoom meetings and how the teachers have had to change their classroom management style with 20 to 30 to 40 kids all in one live meeting. So definitely a new appreciation. But definitely the forms of communication between teacher and parent has increased as far as, here are the resources, what are they doing? And even now during the summer, there's a lot of parents that know that their child probably did not finish where they needed to finish. And so there's, even though our teachers are off the clock right now, they're quote unquote enjoying their summer. They're still communicating with a lot of these parents and providing them resources that they can supplement between now and the start of our upcoming school year.
In terms of the old ways of doing things, including assessment and testing, where do you see that headed in the coming school year?
Well, I know currently our state has petitioned a waiver to the Department of Ed to lift testing for the coming school year for accountability purposes, because this is really hard to test and ensure that every student everywhere is going to get what we've expected to meet these standards on these state assessments that we've put forward. So if we can dial those back, it will give us the flexibility. And it kind of makes me question how important tests are to start off with. If that's one of the things we could easily dial back, what is our purpose of testing? Is it really to see where we are and to move kids forward, to fill in gaps, or is it a checkbox that someone has created? But that those happen in meetings that normally educators aren't in.
Right.
We have to figure out what's going to be the best fit. But I'm glad that our state is taking the lead to pull those restrictions back, because that's one less thing that schools have to worry about as it relates to testing, especially when you're going to have so many kids virtual and in butts and seats. How does that even look when you start talking about giving them a standardized test when, testing security is already something crazy that we have to deal with anyway? How can you ensure the security of testing when you have kids who may not be set foot in your building all year, and some that'll be in and out based on whether it's a situation where they have to be shelter in place, caught up again, or quarantine based on their proximity to someone who has come in contact with the virus. So those are all things that I definitely think testing need to kind of go on the back burner for the next few years, if you ask me.
Yeah. How about any other innovations that came out of the crisis for you in terms of things that you will now continue to do in your district, because you've been thrust into this situation?
One thing, I wouldn't even call it innovation. I think just that a lot of the virtual, and we kind of joked about it prior to this being zoomed out, but I think having a lot of the virtual PD, PL, I think that's here to stay now. We've kind of flirted with it before, but I think teachers having the flexibility to pop in, or even administrators to pop into some kind of virtual training, is definitely something that they're looking at. I can see the opportunity for more augmented reality experiences now increasing, now that we are going to have an increase of the amount of technology that schools and students have access to. I can see that whole augmented type classroom becoming more of a thing. And in our district, we happen to have cameras in all of our classrooms through another initiative that we did for through audio enhancement and a safety system. So for us, looking how we can utilize those cameras to do some live real-time instruction, what does that look like? So really figuring out, we have all these various tools, how can we maximize the use of it? And even I'm seeing more districts maximizing their use of their learning management platform because they've always kind of used them, but now you would be silly to not utilize a learning management platform, whether you're using Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, or you have a paid product like Canvas, which we use, or Schoology, Blackboard. You have to have some kind of digital teaching and learning space. And I see teachers now maximizing those integrations and those tools to make a seamless virtual space as they have a face-to-face space for students.
Right, and the professional development aspect of it is, it's not like this is an option for you, right? I mean, it's just, you've got to do it.
So that whole excuse that some people have said, well, I'm just not good with computers. Oh, you can't use that anymore, because if you're not good with computers, how are you doing anything now? I mean,
Yeah.
you have people who have church services on Zoom or YouTube Live. So all those things are there. So that whole excuse about I can't use technology, it's so complicated.
Right.
You can't use that anymore. So it took a pandemic for people to no longer have that excuse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you think about how the student reaction to all of this, in terms of the new realities of school? As you said, I mean, like, the funnest part of school is probably in between classes as opposed to being in classes. What sort of effect do you think a blended learning setup will have on those sort of experiences?
I mean, of a father of a third grader, I got a chance to see that kind of firsthand. Having the stress of running a district technology for an entire county, and also my wife is a elementary science coordinator for the district, so she's dealing with that. And then also the two of us have to now teach the 9-year-old and also deal with a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old in the house as well. So those are some different stresses for a whole nother conversation. But definitely where the students figuring it out, I think for me, I know my child, she was able to kind of hop in and do the work. It was the social aspect that I think hurt her the most, not having that social interaction with her friends the way that she's used to. And I think there's going to probably be a lot of dissertations and research around this isolation of students at a certain age and figuring how that works. I'm looking at my 5-year-old. She'll be starting kindergarten in the fall. So how her kindergarten experience is going to be totally different than anyone else's. When I look at our seniors, they missed out on all those senior moments that a lot of us probably, look back on, having your, senior week, your proms, your graduations, all those things. So what are those impacts and that those students are going to have short-term and long-term for missing out on those experiences? So those are the things that really concern me the most when I look at that, because like I said, school is important, teaching and learning, but also it's the growth and maturity that our students have in these spaces that we call school that I think we will miss, and we will be lacking with more virtual. It's a different kind of interaction that they're going to start having. So I'm curious to see what is going to be the studies that we find out of this whole digital interactions that our students are now growing up with, because to use one of the phrases of the year, this is going to be the new normal. Now that we know that this is an option, this will be an option that is going to be on the table moving forward for more than 1 year.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope we can do a follow-up in person at ISTE in December, maybe?
Maybe.
We can have our cheese cubes and cheap Merlot then.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks again. And thanks everybody for watching.